Hi, I'm Janice Perkins with Capacity. I'm joined today by Mary Beth Jarvis of NXTUS, formerly E2E. And my camera is being really moody today. I think it's over zoomed. Is that a new term? It's going to be on the Urban Dictionary.
Zoomed out.
Zoomed out. So we'll see if it'll stay on. I've been kicking off the conversations by showing weird videos or things, Mary Beth, but there's just two headlights I want to laugh at with you that have to do with toilet paper because I find that fanatically hilarious. And one of them is a truck stuffed with toilet paper catches fire on a Texas interstate. That's like liquid gold. And then the other one is in a Missouri Walmart, there was a baby born in the toilet paper aisle. I don't know if there were people camped out there trying to get toilet paper. I don't know why she had a baby there. But I think that the whole toilet paper thing, I just have no words for it.
Yeah. It is not what I would have gone to first as a, sort of zeitgeist of the COVID experience.
No. And I'll tell you guys, Mary Beth and I have known each other for a really long time.
Yeah. Shush, lady.
Since we were 12. Look how it's not
100%.
So I've had the pleasure and blessing of knowing her professionally and personally for a long time. She's an incredible person, great perspective. I'm going to shift some of the questions with you too, because I've been asking pretty specifically just over 3 brief questions. But because of your experience with startups and entrepreneurs, I want you to speak to it from that framework. So if there's one thing you could tell a startup who had been driving their train, passionate pursuit at this one goal to launch, what would you tell them right now in this pause?
Well, I'll tell you, we've had tons of conversations with young companies over the last few weeks. And right at the beginning, there were a lot of them were sort of wake-up calls, meaning, no, really, take a look. Because I think there has to be, whenever there's a crisis, you do have to take stock first, right? Like, what's your cash burn? What's your, what are the practical, and that's true of every small business, every large business right now, is you've got to take stock. You've got to understand how much time you have, how much cash you have, what your assets are. But over the last 2 or 3 weeks, the conversations have gotten deeper, right? They're now beyond the can you survive, and if so, how? And they are really about what's gonna be your strength through this, mm-hmm. and what can be your strength coming out of it. I'll tell you, my sort of theme for this week, which is really sort of coincidental, I actually watched for the first time the Tom Hanks plays Mr. Rogers.
I haven't watched it yet.
Oh my gosh, completely worth it. I grew up in Pittsburgh, and the film is partly in Pittsburgh, partly in New York. And it threw me back to my childhood, but it also was a wonderful perspective on today, because this whole idea of neighborliness,
yes,
of reaching out and remembering in whatever size circle we can reach, which in some cases right now is smaller than it normally is, mm-hmm. to be neighborly. And I'll tell you, talking to all of these young companies, the 2 themes are, how can you be neighborly? Like, how can what you do help someone else through this time? And there's some wonderful examples of how startups have focused on that or pivoted to that over these last few weeks and going forward. But the other part of it is just, turn a colleague into a neighbor, turn an acquaintance through business into a neighbor by reaching out and being a neighbor in a time that's so weird and so different and so unprecedented, and for some folks, so jarring. I got the coolest note earlier today, and I won't name from whom it came, but it was a gentleman who I have been acquainted with via a variety of work projects. We've never worked closely, but I've always believed him to be an awesome human. And I got a note this morning from him that just said, "Hey, I was thinking about you. Hope you and your family are well. We're all in this together." And that neighborliness across 1,500 miles was incredibly appreciated. And it took 5 seconds to do it. And it made a huge difference in my continued perception of him as just an upstanding human and someone with whom I'm then going to continue to be eager to work. I remember a couple of years ago, Dr. Elizabeth King, who runs the Wichita State Foundation, was talking to a bunch of nonprofits, and she was extolling the virtues of thank you notes, right? And she literally stood up in front of a room of 250 people and wrote a thank you note in order to demonstrate that it took about 90 seconds.
Right.
A gracious, personalized, sincere thank you note to someone. Well, maybe we're out of the business of stamps and thank you notes, but we sure can be neighborly. And, a short list of colleagues that you reach out to or acquaintances you reach out to during this time and be neighborly, I think is something I've observed being very powerful. But talking to the startups, my sort of nerd group of startups for this week was a crop of FinTech companies, young companies that are offering technologies out there to banks and financial institutions. And it was so interesting to hear how they are doubling down on what they're doing, because let's face it, during this period and maybe beyond, folks aren't going to the bank, right? Their interaction with their financial institution is purely electronic now and purely technology based. There was a company in Colorado whose entire value proposition is that it can help your banker find you money. Like, it becomes an add-on to your banking app for helping you find savings and coupons. And so in the weirdness of online shopping, it observes your patterns and finds ways you could be saving money. There was a company out of Kansas City who they help you connect with your bank by geofencing. Like, if you walk onto the lot of a used car dealer, your bank knows that and can ping you saying, hey, you need a car loan. Well, nobody's walking onto the lot of a used car dealer right now, but they pivoted their entire technology platform to watching if you're shopping for cars online and then helping you connect a car loan, So they're going to come find us where we are and provide help in the ways that we need it right now. Same thing for another company out of New York. This will surprise exactly no one. Statistics clearly show that people, when they are deflected, meaning when they try to reach help in the form of a human and instead they get a machine, whether that's an answering machine on the phone or it's a bot talking to you in a chat area of a website. Again, big shocker, they hate it. Customers are horribly dissatisfied when they try to be a human or are trying to get to a human and instead only have bots, options. Well, this company has completely revolutionized a pairing of making a human help you faster and smarter because they have bots at their disposal, except you, the customer, actually get
human.
So in the
area, love that.
Walk into the bank, or you can't walk in to meet with your financial provider, you still end up with a human because technology has helped that human serve you better, serve you faster, or serve more, and can do so from anywhere. And then there's a company in Wichita whose initial value proposition was helping navigate generational, inheritance and wealth transfer. Okay, that's all well and good. Right now, what people need is sort of more immediate financial health and wellness help. So they have pivoted and created a line of service for the here, for the now, specifically targeted at younger folks who are waking up to a different financial reality and needing good tools in their language that, again, meet them where they are to help solve it. So I think the one thing I've heard the most from these businesses is that they have to be flexible. They also need to be connected. And right now, if you weren't connected at all to someone before this happens, it's going to be really hard to get them, to them now. It's just too noisy. So the phrase I heard the most was warm leads are gold, which translates to relationships.
That's right.
Gold. And by the way, in my little theme for the week, neighbors, people that are business colleagues or associates that you feel about like neighbors, are going to be the relationships and the pathways to continuing to, grow and connect your business, even when the noise level is as high as it is, like right now. So it's been a really interesting and encouraging week. It's shown me once again that entrepreneurs and young companies are ridiculously resourceful, and, total problem solvers. I mean, founders of startups are the breed of human you want combating every crisis. This one is no exception. And fundamentally, it all comes down to neighborliness and the connections and the actions you take to build relationships and really serve people. And it's just been an interesting and enlightening few weeks. And we'll just see how much of that spirit of neighborliness extends beyond this current period of disconnect. I like to think it will.
I'd like to think so too. I think that was really fabulous. And one of my favorite quotes is, that courage is not the absence of fear. It's just acting, despite the fear. And I think that when you're a business, whether you're a long-time business, a legacy business, a startup business, is taking a stock of opportunity. Someone said to me just this morning that they feel bad taking advantage of the current crisis to grow. And I said, no, that's just real business. Like, I let you off the hook thinking that you're trying to take advantage of someone. How we get through this and how we keep business, I want all businesses to thrive. So pivoting, being resourceful, like you said, and taking stock of what you've built, what you're passionate about, that is what exactly we should be doing as smart, astute business people. Is what do I have to offer? What have I been doing? What do I care the most about? Why did I start doing this in the first place? That's a great question to ask. And then you can be really resourceful within that. My camera is so moody, it's making me laugh.
Yeah, you read all the stories about businesses of one ilk that are finding ways to contribute using their resources. And, I saw a piece that in USA Today this week that Koch Industries and Mr. Koch authored, where it talked about the way that problems get solved is that you empower people to use their skills, their brains, the resources they have available to them to solve problems, and you get out of their way. And we've seen lots of that. It might not get the giant headlines like toilet paper on fire,
right,
or, the walking zombies of, the streets of New York. But it's very real. And I think it's happening all over the world. And, that's the beauty of problem solving humans. Would just sprinkle a little bit of neighbor dust on the top of it. And
I would agree.
Got the formula for coming out of this better connected than we went into it. And for a period of time that is characterized by, social distancing and, disconnections from some of the ways that we used to see each other and engage with each other, if we can come out of that more connected, that means we've worked really hard at it. But I think it's worth it.
I'm going to Google neighbor dust tomorrow and see if I can get some on Amazon. We'll see how many entrepreneurs are out there trying to make neighbor dust. Is that glitter? I don't know. So the second question, and you've spoken quite a bit to this, it really is about, you can combine both the last two questions. It's about what would I do for me as a person and what would I do for relationships? Because I like what you're talking about with the neighborly, but what does that mean for me as a person too?
No, I think that's, honestly, it is completely integrated. I think that spirit of connection and neighborliness extends in the workplace, but of course it should extend, at home and as best you can to those, in your life. My daughter and her husband, who are down in Oklahoma, they, every other day, they call the elderly in their world, right? My parents, my father-in-law. And so I think that small gestures mean a lot, in times like this. And that's true, in, you know, and frankly, being the one that reaches out provides you with a sense of connection and positivity that you wouldn't have had otherwise. So I think that that spirit of connection and neighborliness, bring it home as best you can. I had a great conversation with a friend this week, and you know, I asked if she and her husband and their kids who are at home, you know, instead of in school, and they're all working from home, you know, whether, you know, kind of getting on each other's last nerve. And the answer, thankfully, was actually, we've just all decided to treat it like we're, you know, we're getting this bonus time together, and everybody's managed to maintain that attitude. I mean, let the record reflect her kids aren't teenagers yet, but it's, you know, if you can go into that with that spirit and keep that spirit as best you can, I think you come out stronger.
I think that's amazing. You know, the last note I want you to leave us with is, what's your silver lining? What's your on the bright side you found through all of this?
Well, that's a great question. I would say twofold. One, I have gotten 2 weeks in a row sleeping on my own pillow in my own house, which is great. Normally I'm traveling so much that that's hard. So I'll consider that a silver lining. And I think the second one is that my, you know, we have a flung out in all directions family. I've got a son in Washington State, a daughter in Oklahoma with her husband, parents in South Carolina, my father-in-law in Alabama, and a brother in Oregon, another brother in Pennsylvania. And we all have busy lives, right? And we'll go days or weeks without chatting just because, you know, maybe we take each other for granted. But that's not been the case these last few weeks. But we've taken the time to really reach out and stay connected. And it's not always been great news, you know, from all corners. But there's been a deliberateness to staying connected. Now, can we preserve that coming out of this? I don't know. We'll see. But we can certainly try.
No, I think so. I definitely think, you know, that the other part, you're not getting to see how Wichita has transformed very much the past few weeks, but I'm sure you've heard. You know, we're not a very outdoor city, although there are the walking and bike paths, but everybody's outside. Not today because it's cold, but it's so fantastic to see families riding bikes and packs of teenagers riding bikes together. I walked with a girlfriend in our social distancing walking about 2 weeks ago, and we were walking in a neighborhood near hers where there was a giant lake, and I walked by like 8 what I would call teenagers or young 20s, I can't tell anymore, but like 8 of them all fishing, and none of them had a phone in their hand. And I really wanted to stop and applaud and give them all medals. Like, it's so fantastic to see a little bit of the unplugging technology in the getting outdoors to get rid of the stir craziness. I hope that the flavor and personality of that for certain cities changes also permanently. It's not just our ability to be grateful and be kind and maybe know our neighbors a little better. I had some other friends yesterday that I was talking to that said they didn't even know their neighbors very well at all. They had built a new house in a new neighborhood and nobody was ever outside. And now they've met all these people.
Right.
And so, like, I hope those are permanent shifts that have been great. Once the hustle was removed, maybe that adaptation is a good habit to leave there. So yeah, the blessing of some of the silver lining, I definitely hope becomes permanent for all of us.
No, I agree. And just finding ways to find positivity and hope embedded in a strange time. Every night here in New York at 7 p.m., everybody goes outside, keeps their social distance, and there is a literally citywide kind of round of applause. It lasts a whole minute with yelling and cheering and clapping, and it's a daily salute to medical personnel and the personnel and the folks that are still working in, you know, a city that's seen, you know, a longer period of, you know, of issue with COVID-19 than most. And no matter what I'm doing, I always either open up the big window or go outside because it's just uplifting.
That's wonderful.
You know, that's New Yorkers, right? I mean, who knew there were so many gracious, kind, and grateful people in this giant city, and it's really cool to learn.
Well, I was there on 9/11. I know how gracious and kind the whole city is. I know. They pretend that they're not, but they all are. They do make eye contact. I've been there. No, I love that. I think that's such a great note to leave on too, in that that the human nature is connection. And, you know, with the hustle moved out of the equation, it's amazing how it's changed the algorithm for everyone, right? It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Right.
Thank you for joining me, Mary Beth. This is Janice from Capacity for another episode of On the Bright Side. Thank you for joining us.
Have a great one.